Is everybody doing good? Okay. I got a lot to say this morning. So every year, one of the things we talk about at our church is that we want to be a kind of church where a man would get up on Sunday morning and bring his kids here, even if his wife was out of town. Right? Let's just be honest. Most dudes go to church because their wife makes them. Can I get a witness? You don't need to clap. No, it's just true, man. I mean, most guys go to church because their wife's like, we got to go to church. And she's like, oh, okay, all right. We want to be the kind of place where a man would say, you know what? Something happens there that doesn't happen anywhere else. It doesn't happen on the shooting range. It doesn't happen at work. It doesn't happen on the golf course. It doesn't happen in the gym. It doesn't happen on the couch while I'm watching. Hey, who's going to win this, by the way? The Golden State or Cleveland? Huh? I don't know, man. Anyways, that's off the topic. But so, we want to be a place where a man would actually come even if his wife was out of town. Now, we used to say we want to be the kind of church where a man would come even if his wife was sick, and then we thought that would be a very jerkish thing to do. If your wife's sick, you stay home and give her care, right? So we changed it to say we would want to be the kind of place a man would come even if his wife was out of town. Now, in saying that, we want to orient ourselves around the idea of valuing and honoring men. So every year we try to take out at least some time to do at least a series that really focuses in on men. Just to let you know, I'm a huge fan of ladies. I'm married. This August will be for 20 years to my best friend. The girl still turns my head. When we're out, I still crushing on her. I love her to death. And I have 6 daughters. So I'm a huge fan of girls, right? And I happen to think that the best gift that the church could give to a lady is a man who knows how to be a man, right? I think the best gift that the church could give to my daughters is a man who understands that he's not the biggest guy in the room. There's someone bigger than he is. It's called God, right? And this man would live with confidence and humility and courage and wisdom. He would know how to treat a lady like a lady should be treated, right? And we just think that's the best gift that the church could give to a lady. And that's one of the reasons we place a high value on men. Now, we're in this series called Uncomman. And the whole idea here is we want to call men. And listen, by the way, this is not a series in which we bash men. I was watching something on Netflix the other day with my kids. And I'm so tired of men being portrayed as just jackasses. Can I get a witness? I'm just tired of that because there are some really good men in this building. Can I get a witness? Now listen, this is not a series in which we bash men. It's a series in which we're challenging all of us to step our man game up a notch, right? And so last week, if you were here, Roland talked about love and marriage and just having an uncommon marriage and loving in an uncommon way. And today we're going to talk about strength, a different kind of strength, an uncommon kind of strength. Now, I love the idea and I love the practice of strength. I love just to be strong. I like that. I want to be a strong guy. And most guys I know, I don't know too many guys I don't want to be strong, right? Most guys want to be strong enough to do what you need to do. So I looked up in thesaurus.com some synonyms for strong. Now, if you're the one guy in here that's I don't want to be strong, let me just give you some synonyms and see if you would want to be these things. Synonyms for strong. Able. You're able to do what needs to be done. You're capable. You're durable. You're firm. You're forceful. You're robust. You're secure. You're stable. You're substantial. You're tenacious. You're tough. You're vigorous. Those are words that I would love to be able to use to describe myself. And I imagine that most guys in this room would be yeah, I wouldn't mind describing myself with those words either. And I'm pretty sure that most of you ladies in here would be I would like to be able to use those words to describe my man as well. Right? Now, there's a guy named Mark Ripito. He's a strength trainer. And he said something that's kind of funny at first glance, and then the more you think about it, the more it's true. This is what he said. He said, there he goes, strong people... There we go. Strong people are harder to kill than weak people and more useful in general. Huh? Come on, that's pretty good. Strong people are harder to kill than weak people and more useful in general. Now, let me just make the point. If you're moving, you're probably not going to go to the Geek Squad at Best Buy and try to recruit help. Can I get a witness? You're going to go to the gym, right? Because you want somebody who can pick some stuff up and move some stuff around. If there's a problem down the street and you know you're going to need a little muscle to help you, you're probably not going to go to the library to recruit your help, right? You're probably going to go to like your local training center, your MMA training center, your gym, whatever, to try to find somebody to help you, right? Like there's something about strength. We just want to be strong. And you know, honestly, there's nothing wrong with wanting to be strong. In fact, it's a good thing to want to be strong, to want to be capable and able and vigorous and tough and just to be capable of doing what needs to be done, whether it's physically or emotionally or whatever. But here's the thing. I've seen some really, really strong dudes just fall apart. I mean, these are guys that could move a lot of weight. These are guys that if you needed someone to answer the door because on the other side of the door was someone who wished to do you ill harm, you would want these guys. They were that able. They were that capable. They were that strong. I've seen really strong dudes fall apart, just break. Recently in the news, there was a story of someone with whom we become familiar. And I'm really trying to work away from using faces and names of public figures because the more I think about it, like these are people too. Right? And we ought to pray for them rather than always using them as negative examples. But I think in this instance, this probably works. And the other reason I'm sharing it is because it's in newspapers, it's in media, and you could go and read this. And I just want to make a point here. This is Tiger Woods, right? And we all remember a few years ago this sad story of his career just crashing, literally just melted. This guy's, not only is he ridiculously physically strong, but he had a strong game. I mean, financially, strong game. Golf, strong game. I mean, he had a strong portfolio. He was a strong, strong man. And then, he just made a series of bad decisions, and things just began to melt and to break apart and to fall apart. And I don't know if you've been tracking with this at all, but last week, on May 29th, he was arrested again, unfortunately, for DUI. And an article, they showed this, that he reportedly had a tremendous amount of Xanax in his system. Now listen, I'm not going to bash anxiety drugs. I'm not here to do that. I want to make a point here. If you don't know, Xanax is typically taken to help people deal with anxiety. And in addition to that, there were other prescription drugs in his system. And just interestingly, this morning I saw that the New York Times yesterday released a story in which they talked about the Xanax generation. They said, we are living in the United States of Xanax. In other words, we live in a culture of high anxiety, stress. The inside is just a mess. And you take a guy like Tiger, and you could probably take any other number of really strong dudes. And the outside is really strong. The financial portfolio is strong, and physically they're strong, and they're at the top of their game. Everything looks really strong, but on the inside, it's falling apart. And that's kind of the place I want to dig into a little bit today. I want to be strong on the outside. I want to be able to deadlift more than you. I want to be able to squat more than you, bench more than you. I want to run faster than you. I want to jump higher than you. I do want to do all those things more than you, okay? And you probably do the same thing, right? It's just the way we are. We're competitive. But at the end of the day, I want something on the inside that's strong too, right? And so what I've been thinking about is this. And to be honest with you, I'm in the process of really working through this in my own mind and my own heart and my own spirit. And I believe there are two parts to a man. There are the outside and the inside. There's the public and the private. And you will see in a man's outside world, you'll see his public world, you'll see his public self. You'll see that on Instagram and Facebook. And this is what you see in the gym. This is what you see when you drive past his house or when you checked out his LinkedIn profile. This is what you see when you see the outside of a man. You see how big he is, how much he can lift, how big his house is, how new his car is. That's the outside world that you see. And that, is easy to see. And a lot of times, particularly as guys, we spend a lot of attention and energy building up the outside strength. But there's another world, there's another component, and it's the inside, and that's the private world. And quite frankly, you don't see that a lot. It's hard to post that on Instagram. It's hard to post that in a way that anyone can actually see inside strength. Does that make sense? But here's what's important. When the outside is bigger than the inside, there's going to be a crash. Illustration, Tiger Woods. The outside was amazing. I mean, probably all of us at some point looked on and said, I wish I could lift like him. I wish I could swing like him. I wish I had a car like that. His outside game was amazing, but something on the inside wasn't equal to what was happening on the outside. When the outside is bigger than the inside, a crash is going to happen at some point. But when the inside is bigger than the outside, you'll be able to handle whatever comes your way. When your inside is stronger than your outside, you'll be able to deal with whatever life brings to you. Now, I'm going to do something that's going to embarrass a good friend of mine, and I beg your forgiveness, Mr. Virgil Dye. But I want to tell you a story. I want to show you one of the strongest men I know, right here. Virgil Dye. Now, here's the truth. I could probably squat more than Virgil can. I'm pretty sure I could deadlift more than Virgil could, and I could probably run faster than Virgil can. But I'm not nearly as strong as he is. You see, on the outside, I'm a lot stronger. Probably a lot of you guys in this room would be as strong or stronger than Virgil on the outside, but on the inside, there's a different kind of strength. Now, what you see here is Virgil and his bride, Marilyn. On Friday, this coming Friday, June 16th, it will be 1 year since Marilyn has passed away. If you don't know the story of Virgil and Marilyn, I need to tell you. When we first came here, which was about 7.5 years ago, Marilyn was strong and vigorous and thoroughly engaged. She was always fairly quiet, but still engaged, passionate, alert. And then over the first couple of years that we were here, we began to notice that Marilyn was forgetting things, and that she couldn't stay engaged as long as she previously had, and it wasn't long until the doctors began to identify early stages of dementia. And we watched as over the next several years, Marilyn began to fade. She couldn't remember, and she literally got to a point where she couldn't communicate. We watched Virgil stop his life to care for his wife. We watched Virgil stop attending things he loved. We watched Virgil stop going places that he enjoyed. We watched Virgil stop doing things that he thoroughly needed to do in order to care for his wife, who quite frankly at the end didn't even recognize him. We watched a man for 3 years stay with his wife. Many professionals encourage Virgil to put her in a home. It's the best thing for her. Put her in a home. Virgil, you can't do this. Virgil, put her somewhere else. And Virgil consistently said, I cannot, I will not. I said I will stay with her, and I will. And for 3 years, Virgil stayed with his wife and cared for her night and day. Now, it wasn't easy. See, Virgil and I had a special friendship. I have a member of my family who is working through some similar issues. It's one of my offspring. I'm trying to be a little guarded, if you understand what I'm saying, but one of my offspring is working through some similar issues cognitively. And they were very similar to what Virgil's wife, Marilyn, was working through. And so sometimes it can get a little difficult to navigate, just emotionally. And so there were moments in my life where I would just feel overwhelmed, and I would think to myself, Virgil's probably going through the same thing. So I would text him, I'm praying for you. And he, at moments, would get overwhelmed with the care and responsibility of caring for his wife. And so in those moments, he would send me a text, I'm praying for you because you're probably going through something similar. And during those 3 years, we struck up a relationship that was amazing. And I watched as Virgil stayed in the game and cared and cared and cared and cared. There were times where his wife would wander out of the house. You know what he did? He fixed up an alarm system in the house. There were times that she'd wander out and walk down the road. He found her once laying in the middle of the road. Cars stopped on either side. You know what he did? He picked her up, brought her home, cleaned her up, loved her. For 3 years. Now that man can't deadlift 800 pounds, but he's strong. And that's the kind of strength that we're talking about today. That's a different kind of strength. The strength to stay in the game when so many would say you need to do it another way. And even if he did, so many people would agree and say, Virgil, that was a good and a right thing that you did. And yet something inside of him said, I gave my word and I'm staying in the game. And for 3 years, he loved that woman just like he said he would when they first got married. That's strength. And St. Paul wrote about the exact kind of strength that Virgil demonstrated for those 3 years. He said in Colossians chapter 1, he said, I'm going to ask that God will give you complete knowledge of His will. He'll give you spiritual wisdom and understanding. He said, then the way you live will always honor and please the Lord, and your lives will produce every kind of good fruit. All the while, you will grow as you learn to know God better and better. And then he said this, and this is the kind of strength that Virgil had, and it's an uncommon kind of strength that I want, and I would love for every one of you men to have as well. And ladies, this is what St. Paul said. I'm praying for you. We also pray that you will be strengthened with all His, God's, glorious power, so that you will have all the endurance and patience you need. And may you be filled with joy, always thanking the Father. Now, I've highlighted some important words there. Paul said, I'm praying that God's power will be your power. The strength of God will be your strength, that you'll have that kind of strength. And so, here's the thing about the strength we're talking about today. God's strength may not make you curl more, it may not make you run faster, it may not make you more formidable as a warrior, but it will do something that's extraordinary. The kind of strength that Virgil had, here's what it'll do. You will have all the endurance and patience you need and be filled with joy. So I'm like, what is this endurance, patience? Like, these are two different words, but they sound fairly synonymous. So I did a little bit of research. Let me show you what I found. A lack of endurance often results in despondency or losing heart, whereas a lack of patience often leads to wrath or revenge. Listen, fellas, let me just say this to you. There are circumstances in our life that will require a sustained effort for a really long time. And a weak man will quit. A weak man will grow despondent. A weak man will give in and lose heart. But Paul said God has the kind of strength for you that will actually make you so strong you're able to endure what lesser men could never endure. God has that kind of strength for you. And then he said, I'm praying that God will give you the kind of strength that makes you so patient that you can hang in there without blowing up when lesser men would blow up. See, as I'm thinking about this, I'm realizing that men who get angry and quit are weak men. And there are a lot of us who, in our experience as a man, have got angry and quit. And Paul said, I think God could give you strength that would help you to endure patiently whatever comes your way. And St. Paul was saying, I'm going to pray this for you, that you'll discover the strength of God that enables us to hang in there with a smile on our face, just like this. My friend, Rob Polenick, he's a friend and he's an owner of Brutal Iron Gym, and he's a really strong dude. Recently, he posted this note on the wall of his gym. This is what he said. The strength of a man isn't measured in how much he can lift, but in how he lifts others up. Is that good? See, I think you can lift heavy things, But if you can't lift up people, are you really strong? You might be able to lift a lot of weight. You might be able to do some things that people step back and say, that dude is really strong. But if you can't hang in there for the long run, does it really matter? See, the kind of strength, the inside strength, the strength that you may not be able to see on Instagram or Facebook, or the strength that you may not be able to identify in a LinkedIn profile, the strength that you may not be able to determine by seeing someone in the gym, that's the kind of strength that makes an uncommon man. Virgil Dye has that kind of strength. And having known Virgil now for 7 years, I will tell you the source of his strength is his connection to Jesus Christ. Now, I'm going to turn a corner for just a minute. And then I want to come back, circle back around to this matter of internal strength, uncommon strength. I see a trend in men. And I'm aware of it probably because I've noticed it myself for the last few years. It's a tendency towards boredom. And it's not that we're so overwhelmed as we are underwhelmed. Now, when we were younger, we had to be strong. We had to fight. We had to be competitive because, we were always fighting. We were fighting for our place on the team. We were fighting for the job. We were fighting for the girl. Like, we were competing with other people all the time. We had to fight, so we had to be strong. We had to be on our toes. We had to be ready and capable. But then we got the job. We got the girl. And somewhere along the line, we lost our edge. And we stopped fighting. Because there wasn't really anything to fight for any longer. And we got weak. And I think a lot of men are bored. A lot of men are apathetic. A lot of men are searching for a fight. So this week I read an article in the New York Post, and it talked about a boot camp run by this guy, Garrett White, he's the dude in the red hat, that claims it will revive your primal nature. It's for men. It's Warrior Week. Their typical clientele is men ranging from ages 35 to 55. They hold this boot camp 10 to 12 times a year. There's 20 spots available for the boot camp. For every time they open it, there's at least 500 people trying to get in one of those 20 spots. They pay $10,000 for 5 days of butt kicking. Listen, I'll kick your butt for 5. Just saying, all right? And some of these guys even pay $25,000 a year for personalized coaching. Because dudes want to be strong. We want to be tough. We want to be in the fight. We want to be engaged. He says his applicants fall into two categories. Guys who've built something and lost it and are stuck. Like you build a business or you build a family or whatever, and it just crumbled and now you're stuck and you need to get out of a rut. You sign up for his class. He said, but we have guys who are even more dangerous. These are the guys that are killing it, and they're bored. These are the guys that are at the top of their game. Their business is booming. They've got the hot wife. They've got the kids who are just nailing it. Everything is right in their lives, and yet they're just bored. He said, those are the guys. They're in a dangerous place. And I'm reading this stuff, and I'm thinking, men are dying for something to fight for. We're dying for an adventure. We're dying for a reason to be strong. And lots and lots of dudes aren't finding it. And that's why I think so many guys spend so much time in front of pornography. There's an adventure. There's something a conquest to be had. That's why I believe so many dudes spend so many hours playing video games, because there's an adventure to be had. There's a war to be fought. There's something to be won. That's why I believe so many men spend so many hours watching sports, because there's still something to be fought. In fact, John F. Kennedy said the reason, this is my summary of what he said, the reason that sports are so popular because every single one of us sitting on the couch identifies with the warrior on the field. Men need to fight. We desire to be strong. I think we have a culture of bored, weak men. So the church comes along and says, hey, let's get together. We'll sing some songs. We'll read a book. We'll talk to one another. We'll pray to someone we can't see, and maybe we'll even cry together. And then we'll go get some pie for our already obese, weak bodies. And men are saying, hell no. And I understand that. A few weeks ago, I had the chance to sit down with a friend who's a former Marine and a current MMA fighter. And I ran this idea, because I've been kicking this idea around for, 6 months, that this idea that men are bored. We're not overwhelmed, we're underwhelmed. We're under-challenged. So I ran this idea past him, and we talked about men being bored and what it takes to engage a man and keep him engaged. I took like 5 pages of notes. I can't share all of them with you, but I wanted to share a handful of them with you. One of the things he said to me was, guys, speaking of Marines, men who have been in battle, have a very difficult time leaving the desert. This particular soldier has been in Iraq, this particular Marine, there's a difference, apologize. He's done time in Iraq in the sand in the desert. He says a lot of guys never leave the desert up here because there's so much out there to engage you. You're out there, you're fighting, you've got a clear mission, you're engaged, you're doing something significant, and then you come back over here and you work 40 hours a week and mow the lawn. Right? He said in the battle you have a clear sense of purpose and it can become addictive. You're engaged, your mind is on, your adrenaline's high, you're focused, you're in the zone, and then you come back and you sit in an office. And he said something else. He said, guys can be lazy when it comes to themselves, but they're less likely to let down a community, a team. They got to have people around them. He said the biggest fear in the cage, like when he's in the cage fighting, right, is that I'm going to let people down. I'm going to let my team down. I don't want to lose because I don't want to let my team down. I asked him, I said, can you be an optimal warrior on your own? Like, can you be a thoroughly engaged, top-shelf warrior on your own? He said, nobody does it alone. Then he said, bleep, 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 that army of one stuff. It always takes a team. This is an aside. Guys, you can't be tough on your own. You can't be strong on your own. You can't be thoroughly engaged on your own. It really does take a team. And then here's the gold. This was like, I bought him lunch, and the whole lunch, I'd buy him another lunch just for this one sentence. I asked him, how do you engage a bored man? And he responded, there has to be stakes. You've got to have a stake in the game. He says, as a Marine, my life was at stake. My team's life was at stake. So everything I did was important. It was critical. There was no margin for error. I had to be focused. I had to be on. There was something at stake. He said, as a fighter, when I climb in the cage, my pride is at stake. I do not want to get beat by another man. My pride is at stake, and my team is at stake. I don't want them to see one of their teammates lose. And I'm listening to this guy talk. I'm like, oh, God. Like, what is at stake for me? What is at stake for you as a man? What is at stake? Like, do you have a fight in which something or someone is at stake? What is it? Do you have clarity on your mission, or are you, like most guys, bored? So I've thought about the times where I was most engaged, where I was super intense, where I was maximally engaged. And I can think of 3 times in my life where I was so hyper-focused. The first one was when I was a high school dropout and got a GED through the military. And then I went to college. And while I was at college, I met this unbelievably amazing woman. And I knew I couldn't live anymore without her. So I asked her to marry me, and crazy enough, she said yes. And so I began to live the married life, which was amazing, right? And then I accepted a church's call. This church invited me to be their pastor. And I said yes, so I'm newly married. and I'm pastoring, and I'm trying to finish college, taking a full load, 22 credit hours my last semester. I graduated summa cum laude, which if you don't know what that means, it means the highest GPA possible. I remember sitting with the dean of students and him looking at me and saying, I honestly didn't think you'd graduate. I literally didn't think you'd graduate. See, what he didn't understand was, to me, there was something at stake. I'm going to have that degree because I don't have a degree. I'm a dropout. This degree means something significant to me. You can't imagine how many hours everywhere we went, Sherry would drive so I could read. Literally. I created a page. I was reading over 100 pages a day. So focused because I had something at stake. I will walk that aisle. I will walk it with the best possible grades. And you know what? I did it. I was so engaged. Went for a number of years. Pretty much engaged, And then we got here. And Rob Polenick, owner of Brutal Iron Gym, again told me one day, he's like, you should do a physique show. So I said, what's that? He's like, well, it's like a bodybuilding show for guys who don't have muscles. I'm like, well, okay. So I did it, and I lost 30 pounds for my first show. I went from 195 pounds down to 163 pounds. I was ripped. I had veins on my belly. I was so ripped, right? I was so, for 4 months, literally, I was so focused. I did make one mistake with my food for 4 months. You know what it was? I went to Starbucks to have coffee with a guy. He's like, hey, you got to try this new frou-frou drink. And he ordered me this chocolate whipped cream junk. And I drank it, and my estrogen levels went up, and I'm just kidding about that. But it was good. I drank the whole thing. I'm like, oh my God, I just cheated. And I almost cried. But literally, that was the only time in 4 months I did not miss a meal. I ate everything exactly right. And since then, I've done 2 other shows. And every time I do that show, I am so ridiculously focused. I had a guy ask me, what would you do if I put cake in your mouth? I'm like, I'd spit it out and then I'd hit you. I'm not going to cheat. I will not mess up. So focused because there was a stake. I wanted to stand on the stage and do really, really good. That was the second time. The third time, that level of intense focus is right now in my life. Because I believe that God is calling our church to do something important. And I am living with this weight, this awareness. And I'm telling you, gang, I've already told you this before, but I'm checking the kind of shows that I'm watching. I'm checking the kind of music that I'm listening to. I'm checking the books I'm reading. I'm checking the things I'm looking at. I've got a Facebook. I am so focused on becoming the man that God wants me to be so that our church can be filled with the kind of men and women that God wants us to be. So focused. You know why? Because there's a stake in the game. God wants to do something through our church. And I want you, every single man in this church, to be like this. It'd be awesome if you ladies jumped on board too. Paul was an adventurer. St. Paul, the apostle, he was an adventurer, and he was someone who God used a lot. And he wrote something that's really instructive for us in this pursuit. He said, I tried to find common ground with everyone, doing everything I can to save some. I do everything to spread the good news and share in its blessings. Now, as a Christian man, this is a mission for me. I want to see people discover God and live a life that He's calling us to. And I want to benefit from that. And I want to see our church benefit from that. Because in my mind, there's nothing better than having that moment when someone gets it and the lights go on and you're like, yes, there's benefit. But Paul goes on. I mean, you may not be fired up about that verse like I am. I hope at some point all of us will move to this point. That engages me a lot, right? But Paul moves on. This is what I want to show you. He says, don't you realize that in a race, everyone runs, but only one person gets the prize? Say this next line with me. So run to win. Listen. No man wants a participation trophy. Can I get a witness? No dude wants second place. We want to win. And Paul says, okay, so do it. So run to win. And then he says, look, he says, I'm going to show you how. He says, all athletes are disciplined in their training. Right now, the CrossFit, I don't know if any of you guys are into CrossFit. I'm just a tiny little bit into it. I'm watching these athletes prepare for the ultimate CrossFit games, and it's amazing. They're so focused. They're so on. They're training so hard. They're eating right. You watch any kind of an athlete as they prepare. They eat right. They train right. They sleep right. They don't drink alcohol. They stay on task, right? Paul said all athletes are disciplined in their training. They do it to win a prize that will fade away, but what we're doing, for God, it doesn't fade away. Like you win the race, you get a trophy. I win the race, I get to see somebody's life change. He said, so I run with purpose in every step. I'm not just shadow boxing. You know what that means for me? On my phone, where's my phone? So look, I like social media too much, right? And I have a tendency just to like hang out with everybody and like, you know, so on my phone, when I turn my phone on, you probably can't see this, but so just trust me, this is what it says. It says, how does this build the church? Every time I open up my phone, because I am on focus right now. So when I'm on my phone, I'm asking myself this question, is this going to build the church? Is this meeting that I'm having, is it going to build the church? Is what I'm getting ready to look at on Facebook or what I'm getting ready to read, is it going to build the church? I want to run with purpose in every step. I don't want to just be shadow boxing. I want it to count. Paul says, so I discipline my body like an athlete, training it to do what it should. Otherwise, I fear that after preaching to others, I might be disqualified. Listen, here's all I'm saying, and I'm not beating my chest, believe me, because I've spent so many years living with a lack of endurance and a lack of patience. I've been the guy that's struggled with disheartedness. I've been the guy who's struggled with anger and still do, quite frankly, to some points. God humbles me frequently through that. But all I'm saying is that I believe men desperately need something to fight for. And I read through the scriptures, and I believe God has something for us to fight for. Now, when I read all of what St. Paul just wrote, I come away with a couple things. The first is this: there's something to do. There's something for every man to do. Now, the question is, how do you find out what it is? Like, are you supposed to start a business? Are you supposed to be a missionary? Do you write a book? Do you write a song? Do you get married? You know, I mean, what do you do? Like, what is the thing, God? Like, what is the thing? And has anybody ever had that conversation with God? I'm 42 years old, I'm a pastor, and I still have it, right? But how do you find out your thing? Listen, let me just show you this. This is pretty cool. Before every mission, what happens before any mission? Before, you watch war movies, or maybe you were a soldier. Before any mission, before you go out on a mission, there is a briefing. This is a clip from Zero Dark 30, the movie in which the SEAL Team 6 went after Osama bin Laden. And before they went on that mission, they huddled together and they listened to someone who knew. They listened to someone who had the logistics. They listened to someone. You get around the person who knows and you begin to find out the details of your mission. And I'm telling you guys, this is so critical. Because if you don't listen, if you're not clear about the mission, you're going to get hurt and you're going to hurt other people. Now, you may not lose an arm, but you'll break your heart. Or you'll break someone else's heart. Or you'll end up financially destroyed or destroying someone else financially. So how do you listen? How do you huddle up for that briefing? For me, this is where I'm just huddling up around God. This is literally what I do. I get up in the morning. I do yoga for like 15 minutes. Don't laugh, it helps. And then I'll read the Bible. I might read a chapter. I might read 2 chapters. I read till I'm done. I read till, like, sometimes it's just a little bit, sometimes it's a lot. And then I'll probably pick up another book. Right now I'm reading a book called Restoring Your Spiritual Passion, and I'll just read in it. And as I'm reading, things come to mind, and I'll take out my little black journal, and I'll write things in there. I write what I'm feeling. I write what I'm thinking. I write what I'm praying, right? I just write things out. And it's amazing what happens is I just carve out that time to huddle up around someone who knows. There's God, there's other really smart people, and then there's me trying to figure it out. As I do that, it's amazing what begins to come clear. Here's what I realize. A lot of people want to get strong. Few people are willing to do what it takes to get strong. Most people want to walk in the gym and be like, boom, in the gym, 30 pounds down, bench press up 50 pounds, done. Doesn't happen. It takes a long time to get strong. You know how you get strong? You show up. And then you show up. And then you show up. And then you show up and get hurt, so you got to start over. And then you show up. And then you show up again. And then you show up. And one day you realize, oh my God, I've lost weight and I'm stronger. Like, what in the world happened? Here's what happened. You showed up. You had a plan, you showed up. And listen, the same thing happens spiritually. So many times, particularly guys, right? We'll say like, you know what, I'm going to follow Jesus, I'm in. And we jump in and we're like, I'm excited, I'm going to read the Bible. We'll read the Bible and it's boring. By the way, the Bible is boring to preachers sometimes too. I guess it's boring. I prayed, didn't feel like it went anywhere. Done. Guess what? You're going to be weak the rest of your life. You get strong by showing up, and then showing up, and then showing up. There's something to do, men, and we have to prepare to do it. We have to get strong to do it. And the way we get strong is by showing up to the briefing. And then, I love this. King David, who was an incredible warrior, by the way, after he'd showed up with God enough, he said, you know what? In your strength, I can crush an army. With my God, I can scale any wall. I'm strong because I sat around for the briefing. I'm well-resourced because I hung out with the people who know. I've got the strength of God, and I can pretty much hang as long as necessary to get the job done. That is the strength that God wants to give to us as men and ladies. So I'm reading through St. Paul, and I'm like, here's what it really comes down to. We have to simply discipline ourselves to do the things that build inner strength. We've got to go to the briefing. We've got to build a team of guys around us, and then we got to get to it. We've got to stop living fearfully and scared and go to it. Now this idea of there's something to do, there's something that God has for you to do that will require everything you've got, that will make you scared, that will require every bit of energy and passion and strength and thoughtfulness that you can muster. God did not call you to be bored and weak. He called you to be strong and engaged. He called you to do something. He didn't call you to be a weak, bored man who shows up to church on Sunday and goes home and lives however the hell you want on Monday. Sorry, I didn't mean to say it like that. But that's the point, right? The key is now this. To find out what do you want? And the way you do is you show up and you get close to Him. Show up at the briefing, build a team, get to it. Now right now I'm 42. I just turned 42 in May. And I'm not bored. I'm engaged as I've been in years. I'm excited. And I'm feeling the strength of God to last, to stay in the game. And it flows out of this conviction. There is something to do. There's something to be done, and every single man in this room has something that God wants for you to do. And so I'm praying for you today what St. Paul prayed for his friends. That you will be strengthened with all His glorious power, so you will have all the endurance and patience you need. May you be filled with joy, always thanking the Father. You will be able to, with God's strength, stay the task as long as it takes with a smile on your face. Like Virgil, like Jesus, like St. Paul, and like so many other men who've discovered the strength of God on the inside. And so men, this morning, here's what I want to ask you. Would you be willing to make a commitment with me? Because I'm on the same journey, guys. To begin asking God, what is my mission? Like, what is it? If you show me, that's a big first step. What is my mission? Would you just commit to that? And then would you be willing to commit with me to building inner strength that you'll need to accomplish the mission God is sending you on. The first place to start building inner strength is just showing up at the briefing, hearing what God is saying, thinking, talking, listening. Literally, you could start with like 5-10 minutes a day, 15 minutes a day. And then thirdly, would you be willing to commit to joining a team? Getting alongside some other men and journeying together so we can be uncommon men. Different, strong, on focus, on point. Now, the easiest way to do that, listen, I do not mean to be a commercial. I passionately believe in what we're getting ready to talk about. In September, we're going to be partnering with a group from North Carolina called Battle Ready Men. And they have a retreat. It's September 29, 30, and October 1st. It's Saturday or Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It's for men. And in that meeting, the men who spoke last week, Roland Martinez, the man who's going to speak next week, Travis Bowman, they are two of the teachers at this conference. And this is going to be an incredible time where we as men dig in. And we're also going to do some cool stuff like zip lines and rappelling and all kinds of other good stuff. But we're also going to dig in deep and really try to connect with what's my mission and where do I discover the strength of God. Now, we put a link on Facebook, facebook.com/mychurch180. It'll be up there this afternoon. You can register there if you want. And we're going to be talking about this a lot for the next couple months. But fellas, this is really it. There is something to do. Something that will require deep inner strength. Something that will require a team. And something that will require the best you have for the rest of your life. Something that will require an uncommon man to fully execute. My question is this: will you jump in with me? Will you do this with me, men? I'm doing it. I'd love if you guys came along with me. And I think, quite frankly, our wives would too. And our ladies would too. Can I get a witness? Now listen. I'm done. Next week, my friend Travis Bowman is going to be here. Travis wrote a book based on the story of his relative. His relative is a man named Peter Francisco. George Washington called him the Hercules of the Revolution. And George Washington said, without Peter Francisco, we would have lost at least 2 battles that would have probably turned the course of the war. Travis Bowman is able to trace his lineage back to Peter Francisco, and he has taken it on as his life mission to tell the Peter Francisco story. He wrote this book, Luso, incredible book. I just finished it, read it every night before I went to bed. Really good story. Interestingly enough, Mel Gibson, he's in conversation with Mel Gibson about making this book a movie, and just a couple of weeks ago, the director of The Shack reached out to him and said, I'd like to talk with you as well about it. That's a really incredible story. He's coming here to teach. It's going to be a really cool thing. I encourage you to be a part of that, all right? And bring somebody with you. I think you'll like Travis. Next week also, we're doing baptisms. Men, listen, if you haven't just jumped in behind Jesus, can I just encourage you, go back today and sign up at that table as you're walking out to your left-hand side. Sign your name. Let's just do this, right? Let's stop being weak about it. Make a decision. Jump in. Let's follow Jesus together. What do you say? Next week, baptism. Next week also is Father's Day. It's going to be a lot of fun. I encourage you to be here. We are going to give away some really cool prizes next week, all right? And it's the cornhole finale, and everybody wants to be here for that. Can I get a witness? Okay. I love you guys. Thank you for being a part of our church. God is doing some cool things here. And I believe strongly that He is going to tap into men in our church to stand up and lead the way. Again, huge fan of ladies. I love ladies. And I think ladies can be in leadership too, by the way. If you missed our last series, that's what he said. We're talking about what God says to ladies. That's a great series. Go back and hear it. But this is about men, and I ask you men to really dig in with me as we seek to be men, uncommon kinds of men. Amen? Good. I'm going to pray. And what time is it? Oh, we can still beat the Baptist to Mose, right? That's good. All right? Good. Okay. Thank you, God, for today. And I'm sorry I swore. I didn't mean to. I got a little fired up. And I just want us to be so engaged with Jesus and just fired up about you. I want us to be men who are, strong on the outside is great. I think we should definitely pay attention to the outside. But God, help us to be strong on the inside too. Because that's what really matters. I mean, if I had to choose between a 1,000-pound deadlift and being like Virgil Dye, I'm Virgil Dye. I want that kind of strength. Thank you for working in Virgil. If Virgil could stand up here, he would say, it's Jesus. It's Jesus working through me. I know he'd say it. He said it to me. I want that kind of strength. I want the men of our church to have that kind of strength. The strength that doesn't break. The strength that doesn't quit. The strength that can endure the craziest of times with a smile on our face. That's the kind of strength that's available to us through Christ. Help us as men to move into that and to ultimately be uncommon men in this world. In Jesus' awesome name, amen. God bless you guys. Thanks for being here.